They say when a warrior falls into the mud, only one thing is certain: she will kneel before the one who defeated her. But is becoming a personal slave to one's enemy truly the end, or the beginning of a complex relationship? Let us explore how an alien champion loses everything and is forced to serve an enemy she never anticipated. In the distant reaches of space, nestled within the hollow of a mined asteroid, lay the Nexus Arena, a colossal structure where alien races gathered to settle disputes through honorable combat. Here, in this future, where the Galactic Alliance ruled most of the known universe, Earth was merely a grain of sand that few cared about. The arena's atmosphere was thick with anticipation as spectators from 17 different species filled the tiered seating. Holographic displays flickered, showing betting odds and fighter statistics. Each race had its own combat rules, but the public most fervently followed battles between champions of each planet. Honor, glory, and political rewards revolved around each fight. Amid the upper tier of the arena, sitting on a ceremonial chair carved from rare metallic ore, was Naylin of the Vorak race. Her dark blue skin gleamed under the arena lights, highlighting the 17 battle marks etched into her flesh, each representing a defeated champion. Her silver eyes scanned the arena with cold indifference. For 15 years, she had remained undefeated, the living embodiment of Vorak pride, a thirst for honor and unwavering belief in the warrior's law. In stark contrast, deep within the arena's holding cells, a newcomer waited. Kai, a human whose presence in the Nexus Arena was unprecedented, sat calmly despite the energy shackles binding his wrists. Earth had never sent fighters before. Humans were considered too weak, too undeveloped to participate in such prestigious combat. Yet, here he was, observing his surroundings with methodical precision, noting the distance between guards, the response time of the energy shackles, the rhythm of the arena announcements. The holding cell door slid open with a metallic groan. Vex Kororin, the High Administrator of Nexus Arena, entered with his 4 arms manipulating various holographic displays. His purple eyes narrowed as they focused on Kai. Human. Kororin's voice was cold and precise. The Assembly has reviewed your petition. Despite considerable skepticism, you will be permitted to fight. Kai nodded, his expression revealing nothing. However, Kororin continued, there has been a change in the traditional order. You will fight first, challenging directly for championship status. This announcement, when broadcast to the waiting audience, sent ripples of shock through the 17 species present. Betting odds fluctuated wildly on the holographic boards. Many wagered that the human would die in the first contact. In her special viewing box, Naylin's eyebrows raised slightly, the only indication of her surprise. No one had ever been foolish enough to challenge her directly, without first proving themselves against lesser opponents. She dismissed the human as either incredibly arrogant or laughably ignorant of arena customs. But beneath Kai's calm exterior, his heart raced. His mission wasn't merely to survive, but to access information about the alien alliance. He needed to prove that his survival-based approach would keep him alive, while the honor of other races would become his weapon. The first challenge came sooner than expected. The arena lights dimmed, then flared to illuminate the sand-covered battle floor. Kai was escorted to the arena entrance, still wearing nothing but simple clothing. No weapons, no armor. His opponent was announced with thunderous applause. Scaroth, a creature nearly 2 meters tall with digitigrade legs and gleaming black claws. Known for killing opponents the moment they touched the arena floor. Scaroth performed an elaborate display of strength, what the Vorak called the Fireface dance, roaring and slashing the air with his claws. The crowd roared with approval, their collective voice predicting Kai's swift demise. Even the commentators spoke as though his death was a foregone conclusion. Kai stepped onto the damp sand, barefoot and barehanded, appearing as casual as if he were stepping out for a conversation. His eyes quickly assessed the arena, the distance to his opponent, the texture of the sand, the response time of his energy shackles, which had been reconfigured to permit combat while still preventing escape. Scaroth growled, displaying rows of jagged teeth, then charged with frightening speed. The crowd held its breath, expecting to see human blood spilled across the sand. Instead, Kai pivoted slightly, his movement so subtle it almost seemed accidental. Scaroth's momentum carried him forward, as Kai used the creature's own shoulder blade as leverage. With precise pressure on a specific nerve cluster, Kai caused the massive creature to stumble and collapse. Scaroth wasn't dead, wasn't even bleeding, but found himself completely immobilized, muscles refusing to respond to his brain's frantic commands. Kai had disabled him without a single drop of blood spilled, a stark contrast to the bloody spectacle the audience had expected. Silence fell over the arena, so profound that one could hear the ventilation systems whirring in the lower levels. Then came the murmurs. Is this human miraculous or deceitful? From her seat, Naylin observed with burning eyes, mixed with curiosity. She's good, she thought, referring to Kai as she, since the Vorak language didn't differentiate genders the way humans did. But she hasn't faced me yet. As the stunned Scaroth was removed from the arena floor, Kai felt the internal conflict that would define his journey. Must I kill to succeed? Or can I accomplish my mission while preserving life? After the match, Kororin announced Kai's victory, promising him advancement to the honor round. Kai was escorted to better temporary quarters, though still bound by energy shackles. Soon after, a messenger arrived with orders. The leading challenger must meet directly with the champion. The first meeting would take place in the training area. The training room was spacious, with walls of polished stone and floors covered in fine, soft sand. Various weapons hung on racks along the walls, but Kai ignored them, focusing instead on bodyweight exercises, fluid movements that resembled a meditative dance. Naylin entered silently, her footsteps barely disturbing the sand. She watched Kai complete a series of movements, noting the precision and control in each gesture. Human, she finally spoke, her voice carrying the musical undertones characteristic of the Vorak language. Why do you fight like a coward? No weapons, no armor, no honor at all. Kai paused, turning to face her. Honor doesn't help me survive. I only live to serve my purpose. You live only for yourself, Naylin replied, her silver eyes narrowing. But when you place survival above all else, you learn to lose honor. Kai considered her words silently, revealing a glimpse of his inner conflict. Was honor merely an obstacle to survival, or something more? The philosophical divide between them was clear. Vorak warrior religion valued victory at any cost through traditional means, while Kai's non-lethal strategy seemed alien and dishonorable to Naylin. Yet, as she watched him train, a seed of doubt took root in her mind. For the first time, she witnessed an unarmed enemy prevailing, making her wonder if her honor values might be a deadly weakness. Over the following days, Kai faced other champions in preliminary bouts. Each victory came without bloodshed, further puzzling the audience and annoying the arena officials who thrived on spectacle. His most significant challenge before the championship came from Thorgrim Bloodfang, a Chronari warrior, nearly 8 feet tall with a body covered in bone spikes. Thorgrim relied entirely on brute force, charging at Kai like a living battering ram. The battle lasted longer than previous ones, with Kai studying Thorgrim's patterns before identifying weaknesses in the giant's balance and coordination. When Thorgrim finally fell, immobilized by precisely targeted nerve strikes, the crowd's reaction had shifted from disbelief to fascination. After each victory, Kai returned to his quarters to find Naylin waiting. their conversations growing increasingly complex as they explored their different philosophies of combat and honor. "Your technique," Nayland admitted reluctantly during one such conversation. "It has efficiency. But where is the glory in victory without blood?" "Is glory found in blood?" Kai countered. "Or in mastery over oneself and one's opponent?" These discussions left both warriors questioning their core beliefs. Kai struggled with his mission parameters: gather intelligence without revealing Earth's true intentions, while developing unexpected respect for Nayland's dedication to her cultural values. Meanwhile, Nayland found herself drawn to Kai's different perspective, though she would never admit it openly. The night before their championship battle, Nayland visited Kai's quarters one last time. "Tomorrow, human, you will understand true Vorak combat," she said, her voice betraying a hint of uncertainty that hadn't been there before. "My 17 battle marks were not earned through gentle submissions." Kai nodded. "I look forward to learning from you, Champion Nayland." Their eyes met briefly, a moment of understanding passing between them, two warriors bound by duty and tradition, yet standing at the precipice of change. The day of the championship arrived with ceremonial grandeur. The arena was filled beyond capacity, with dignitaries from across the Galactic Alliance in attendance. The stakes had never been higher, not just for Kai and Nayland, but for the political standing of their respective species within the Alliance. The ritual began with formal oaths. Nayland recited the traditional Vorak warrior's pledge, displaying her 17 battle marks with pride. When Kai's turn came, he simply said, "I accept," drawing snickers from some spectators and gasps of surprise from others. The arena lights pulsed in two colors, blue for Kai and fierce red for Nayland. The sand was damp, the floor surface smooth but unpredictable. Ancient pattern sensors attached to the arena walls collected physiological data and sand displacement patterns, broadcasting directly to the Galactic Alliance. Nayland entered first, her curved blade gleaming under the lights. She moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step calculated and precise. Kai followed, still unarmed, his simple attire a stark contrast to Nayland's ceremonial combat gear. When the signal was given, Nayland attacked with lightning speed, her curved blade flashing through the air, aiming to end the battle immediately. Kai dodged, closing the distance and targeting pressure points on her sword arm. The crowd gasped as Nayland's grip faltered momentarily. They circled each other, exchanging swift attacks and counterattacks. Nayland's blade work was exquisite, centuries of Vorak combat tradition evident in every movement. Kai matched her with an economy of motion, never wasting energy, always seeking the path of least resistance. The turning point came when Nayland managed to slice a small wound on Kai's shoulder, the first time he had bled in the arena. The crowd roared as droplets of red stained the sand. Nayland paused, momentarily stunned by the sight of her opponent's blood. In that moment, she noticed something unexpected. Kai showed no sign of pain. His breathing remained steady, his focus unwavering. This realization shook her more than any physical blow. She pressed her advantage, abandoning traditional techniques for more ruthless attacks aimed at severing the blood vessels in Kai's legs. Kai evaded. Then, in a lightning-quick move, pressed his hand against a nerve point below Nayland's ankle, causing her to collapse onto the sand. The sound of her fall echoed through the suddenly silent arena. As she lay there, Nayland experienced a moment of clarity. This man doesn't fight to kill, but to force submission. She looked at her fallen sword, just inches from her hand. "Yield," Kai said quietly, standing over her. Pride warred with reality in Nayland's mind. Never in her 15 years as champion had she been defeated, especially not in this humiliating, bloodless manner. But the Vorak code was clear. When defeat was absolute, submission was the only honorable path. With rigid formality, Nayland knelt, head bowed, eyes dry. Vorak warriors never shed tears. Kororin appeared at the edge of the arena, his expression unreadable. "According to the Covenant," he announced, his voice echoing through the arena, "the defeated must become the personal slave of the victor." A metal band bearing the Vorak emblem was placed around Naelin's wrist, symbolizing her new status. She knelt with dignity, but inside seethed with confusion and resentment. As the binding ceremony concluded, Kai received a discreet signal through his neural implant. Phase 1 complete. The code phrase from Sarah Hawthorne confirming the first stage of his espionage mission was successful. He suppressed his internal conflict, torn between respecting the ritual and completing his true mission. The aftermath of the championship brought significant changes. Naelin was stripped of her weapons and battle trophies, moved to slave quarters adjacent to Kai's assigned apartment. Many other species whispered among themselves. Could he be a new threat to the established order? In the temporary prison room, Kai and Naelin had their first private conversation since the binding ceremony. "You could have killed me from the beginning," Naelin said, her voice tightly controlled. "Why didn't you? Why choose me?" "I don't need to kill," Kai replied. "I need to understand. You need to cooperate, too, if you don't want a longer death." The cryptic response puzzled Naelin, but she got a partial answer when Kai accidentally opened a holographic document. She glimpsed the words, "Earth Intelligence Agency," before he closed it. The realization dawned on her. "You're an infiltrator." But she only saw enough to create internal conflict, not the full picture. Over the following days, Kai led Naelin through the technical corridors of Nexus Arena, gray stone walls, exposed electrical conduits, scanning radars, monitoring the surroundings. He used Vorak warrior gestures to communicate trust. "If you shield me today, I promise to shield you in return." Reluctantly, Naelin agreed, though suspicion still dominated her thoughts. Their objective became clear: the core data vault of Nexus Arena, located 30 levels below the asteroid's surface. Kai explained, "Only I can access the Earth ID secure account, but you have the weapon skills to buy me the time I need." The plan was risky, but straightforward. Kai would hack the external control panel and bypass the automated firewall, while Naelin would handle any security forces they encountered. Neither spoke about what would happen afterward, whether they would remain bound by the slave covenant or forge a new path. On the night of the infiltration, they moved silently through the maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main passageways. Automated turrets and elite security teams guarded the technology core, but Kai had studied their patterns during his time in the arena. When they reached the outer security checkpoint, Kai interfaced with the control panel, his fingers moving with practiced precision as he disabled the first layer of security. Alarm systems were temporarily looped, creating a small window of opportunity. They proceeded deeper, encountering the first wave of security robots. Naelin dispatched them with lightning-fast knife work, her pure Vorak combat skills enhanced by the fluid movements she had observed in Kai's fighting style. Together, they moved like a well-coordinated unit, compensating for each other's weaknesses. As they approached the core data vault, emergency lights began flashing, and alarm sirens wailed through the facility. Their intrusion had been detected. "We have 4 minutes before full lockdown," Kai said, working frantically on the final security barrier. "Make it 2, Naelin replied, hearing the approach of heavy security reinforcements. Just as Kai breached the last firewall, the power lines were cut, red emergency lights bathing the corridor in an eerie glow. Standing before them was Kororin, wielding 2 long plasma rifles. "You will not leave this station alive," Kororin said, his voice cold as space itself. "The data you seek will never reach your alliance." Kai utilized his energy shackles, converting them into a small trap that limited Kororin's weapon movement. Simultaneously, Naelin closed the distance, using a magical warrior, Vorak thrust, to neutralize Kororin's mechanical arm holding the plasma rifle. Kororin targeted Kai directly. You will never leave this station alive. Naylin, filled with rage, launched herself at the administrator, channeling all the bitterness of a warrior whose blood had been tainted by betrayal of the throne. The outcome was decisive. Kororin found himself bound by Kai's repurposed energy shackles, helplessly watching as the two traitors left the biometrics room with the stolen data. Their escape route led to a small, human stealth ship, barely large enough for one person. As they climbed aboard, the station lights flashed red, triggering a full asteroid alert. The ship launched, firing cooling beams to bypass the radar systems. Just as they cleared the asteroid's surface, Kororin remotely controlled missile-equipped drones to pursue them. The chase was intense, with Kai's piloting skills pushed to their limits. One missile struck their vessel, severely damaging the port side. For a moment, it seemed they wouldn't make it, until Kai deployed an intricate net-like shield that absorbed the remaining missile impacts, allowing them to crash land safely in a void space sector beyond immediate Alliance territory. Several months later, on a remote human colony planet, Kai and Naylin had established new roles. The military base was simple but effective, with Earth forces training for potential conflicts with hostile alien races. Kai served as a tactical training commander, teaching soldiers to combine physical flexibility with battlefield analysis. Beside him stood Naylin, instructing troops in the art of Vorak combat, raising swords, honoring tradition, and the strength of stillness. During a rare moment alone, watching the sunset from the training field, Naylin turned to Kai. "You once said, 'I like you because you fight for honor, while I fight for survival.'" Kai smiled gently. "Because you made me understand that honor and survival don't have to be opposites." Their relationship had evolved from enemies to reluctant allies, and finally to something deeper, partners who balanced each other's strengths and weaknesses. Kai had discovered that love and trust held power equal to any strategic mission. He chose to build a true alliance based on human connection rather than politics alone. Naylin, once rigid in her devotion to religious honor, now understood that flexibility could sometimes better preserve that honor. She had become the first symbol of a multi-species alliance, honor in harmony. As they stood watching the twin moons rise, a message arrived from Earth Command. Kai and Naylin were to prepare for their next mission. The other races haven't forgiven, and Kororin may have survived. They exchanged a glance, knowing the journey ahead would be more dangerous than ever. But now, neither of them was alone. In the training field below, human and alien soldiers practiced side by side, learning from both traditions. Perhaps this was the true victory, not dominance in an arena, but the creation of something new and stronger through understanding. As darkness fell, Kai and Naylin returned to their duties, their shadows merging into one on the dusty ground behind them. The binding that had begun as slavery had transformed into something neither could have imagined. A bond forged in combat, tempered by adversity, and strengthened by mutual respect. The next day dawned with renewed purpose. The training facilities bustled with activity as soldiers from Earth and a handful of allied alien species practiced combat techniques that merged different traditions. Kai stood at the center of the main training ground, demonstrating a sequence of defensive moves that combined Earth martial arts with elements of Vorak precision. "The key is anticipation," he explained to the attentive recruits. "Your opponent's strength can become your advantage." From her position at the edge of the training circle, Naylin observed with critical eyes. When Kai finished his demonstration, she stepped forward. "What the commander shows you is effective," she addressed the soldiers, her accent still thick, but her command of human language improving daily. "But remember, without honor in your heart, technique is empty. A Vorak warrior fights not just with body, but with spirit." The soldiers nodded, some with understanding, others with skepticism. The integration of these philosophies was still new, still evolving. During a break in training, Kai and Naylan retreated to the command center, where holographic displays showed the current status of Earth's defensive positions throughout this sector of space. Intelligence reports indicated increased activity among several Alliance races, particularly those aligned with Kororan's faction. "They're mobilizing," Kai noted, studying the movement patterns. "Not for full-scale war yet, but definitely preparing for something." Naylan leaned closer to the display, her silver eyes reflecting the blue light of the hologram. "The Chronari battle formations. They're traditional pre-invasion patterns." She pointed to a specific cluster. "And here, these are Vorak scout ships. My people are involved." The revelation brought a shadow of pain across her face. Though months had passed since her defeat and binding, Naylan still struggled with her position between worlds, no longer fully Vorak by her people's standards, yet not human either. Kai noticed her expression and deactivated the display. "Your knowledge of their tactics will be our greatest advantage," he said quietly. "You haven't betrayed your people, Naylan. You might be saving them from a war they can't win." She met his gaze steadily. "The Vorak have a saying, a warrior without a clan is already dead. I've accepted that reality." "Perhaps," Kai suggested, "you're simply founding a new clan." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication alert. The holographic projector flickered to life, displaying the stern face of General Marcus Harrington, Earth Defense Command. "Commander Kai, we've intercepted communications indicating Kororan survived your encounter at Nexus Arena. He's risen to a position of significant influence within the Alliance Council and is actively pushing for sanctions against Earth, citing your theft of proprietary data as justification." Kai's expression remained neutral, but Naylan could sense the tension in his posture. "The data revealed their plans for attack. General, we were justified." "I'm not disagreeing," Harrington replied, "but politics rarely cares about justification. We need to get ahead of this. The data you recovered showed multiple vulnerabilities in their defense network, but we need more current information. Intelligence suggests Kororan will be attending a diplomatic summit on Taralis Prime in 2 weeks. It may be our only opportunity to access updated Alliance battle plans." "Taralis Prime is heavily guarded," Naylan interjected, "and Kororan will recognize both of us immediately." The general's eyes shifted to her, his expression calculating. "That's precisely why you'll be the perfect distraction, former champion Naylan. Your appearance at the summit would create exactly the kind of diplomatic incident that would draw attention away from our real objective." After the communication ended, Kai and Naylan remained in silence for several moments, considering the implications of this new mission. "He wants to use you as bait," Kai finally said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Yes," Naylan agreed, surprisingly calm. "And it's logical. My presence would indeed cause considerable disruption. It's too dangerous. The Vorak delegation would consider you a traitor, potentially demanding your execution under Alliance law." Naylan's lips curved into a small, bitter smile. "In their eyes, I already died the day I yielded to you in the arena. But there's something your general doesn't understand." She moved to the window, looking out at the training grounds where humans and aliens work together. "Kororan doesn't just want revenge against us. He wants war with Earth. The data we stole proved that." "Why?" Kai asked, joining her at the window. "What does Earth represent that threatens him so much?" "Change," Naylan said simply. "Your people fight differently, think differently. You value individual life in a way most Alliance races do not. This threatens the power structure Kororan and others have maintained for centuries." Kai considered her words carefully. "If we don't go to Taralis Prime, he'll find another way to provoke conflict. At least this way. We choose the battlefield." "Yes," Naylan agreed. "But we cannot approach this as we did Nexus Arena. We need allies." The preparation for the Taralis Prime mission began immediately. while Earth Command focused on the technical aspects, creating disguises, securing transportation, developing extraction plans. Kai and Nayland pursued a different strategy. They reached out to former opponents from the Nexus arena, warriors who had witnessed Kai's unique approach to combat and who might harbor their own doubts about Alliance leadership. Thorgrim Bloodfang, the Chronari warrior Kai had defeated without bloodshed, was among the first to respond. The Chronari value strength, Nayland explained, as they prepared to meet with Thorgrim at a neutral trading post. By defeating him honorably, you earned his respect, even if he would never admit it publicly. Thorgrim's massive frame dominated the small, dimly lit meeting room at the edge of the trading post. His bone spikes had been painted with ceremonial Chronari war markings, indicating his elevated status since his arena days. "Human," he growled by way of greeting. "And the fallen champion. An interesting pair." Kai got straight to the point. "Kororin is manipulating the Alliance toward war with Earth. We need to know who among the Chronari supports him." Thorgrim's laughter was like rocks grinding together. "Direct, as always. The Chronari High Command officially stands with Kororin. Unofficially." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Many warriors question his honor. Rumors spread after your escape from Nexus Arena. Data was found, suggesting Kororin had been fixing matches, manipulating outcomes to maintain political control." This was new information, and Kai exchanged a quick glance with Nayland. "Would warriors testify to this?" "Not openly," Thorgrim replied, "but if proof were presented at the right moment, before the right audience." He left the implication hanging. By the time they left the trading post, Kai and Nayland had secured not just Thorgrim's tacit support, but also valuable intelligence about the summit's security arrangements. Similar meetings with other former arena fighters yielded additional allies, creating a loose network of dissatisfied warriors across multiple species. 2 days before departing for Teralis Prime, Kai found Nayland in their quarters, meticulously sharpening her ceremonial blade, the same one she had wielded in their championship battle, now returned to her as part of their mission preparations. "The blade remembers," she said without looking up. "Even after all this time." Kai sat across from her. "Are you certain about this plan? Once we're on Teralis Prime, Earth Command can't protect you from Alliance jurisdiction." Nayland tested the blade's edge with her thumb, drawing a thin line of dark blue blood. "I was a champion for 15 years, Kai. I survived 93 death matches before you ever set foot in Nexus Arena. I don't need protection." She finally looked up, meeting his eyes. "But I do need you to promise me something." "Name it." "If things go wrong, if we're separated." She hesitated, then continued with formal precision. "Do not sacrifice the mission to save me. The information about Kororin's war plans must reach Earth, regardless of personal cost." Kai wanted to object, to insist they would both return safely, but he respected her too much for such platitudes. "I promise," he said instead. "On one condition. You make the same promise to me." Nayland's silver eyes widened slightly. "You would trust a former slave with your mission?" "I would trust a warrior with my life," Kai corrected. "The binding ceremony ended the day we left Nexus Arena. You've been free since then." "Nayland, I thought you knew." She set down her blade carefully. "Freedom is more complex than the absence of chains, Kai. But I will honor your condition. If you fall, I will complete the mission." The journey to Teralis Prime was tense but uneventful. They traveled separately, Kai disguised as a minor Earth diplomat, Nayland as a mercenary guard for a Chronari trade delegation, her distinctive features concealed by specialized makeup and temporary dermal modifications. Teralis Prime itself was a marvel of Alliance engineering, a planet-sized space station orbiting a binary star system, its surface covered with gleaming structures representing architectural styles from hundreds of different worlds. The diplomatic summit was being held in the Grand Concourse, a massive open area at the heart of the station where representatives from all Alliance races would gather. Security was even tighter than anticipated. DNA scanners, neural pattern recognition systems, and armed guards at every entrance made infiltration challenging. Kai's diplomatic credentials got him through the outer perimeter. But the inner sanctum, where Kororin and the high-ranking Alliance officials would meet, remained inaccessible. Naylin, meanwhile, moved among the security forces, her modified appearance and borrowed credentials holding up under scrutiny. Through their secure communication channel, they coordinated movements, building a comprehensive map of the facility's defenses. "The main security hub is on level 4, Naylin reported during their scheduled check-in. "It controls all surveillance systems for the summit. If we can access it, we could create a blind spot for your infiltration of the inner sanctum." "Too heavily guarded," Kai responded. "We need another approach." He paused, thinking. What about the environmental controls? This station was built with redundant systems. If we triggered an atmospheric anomaly in one section, they would have to evacuate that area, Naylin finished, creating a disruption in their security pattern. The plan was risky, but executable. While Naylin positioned herself near the environmental control nexus, Kai prepared to exploit the coming distraction. They set their operation for the summit's opening ceremony, when security would be focused on the arriving dignitaries. Neither of them noticed the extra surveillance focused on the Kranari delegation, or the way certain security personnel seemed to pay special attention to Naylin, despite her disguise. The opening ceremony began with typical Alliance pomposity, long speeches about cooperation and shared prosperity that both Kai and Naylin knew masked ruthless political maneuvering. From his position among the Earth delegation, Kai spotted Kororin on the main platform, his forearms adorned with ceremonial bands, indicating his elevated status. "Target confirmed," he subvocalized into his communicator. "Beginning countdown." "Acknowledged," came Naylin's terse reply. "Environmental controls accessed. Preparing atmospheric fluctuation in Sector 7. The plan proceeded smoothly, perhaps too smoothly, as Naylin initiated the sequence that would create a localized atmospheric pressure drop, forcing an evacuation of a non-critical area. The doors to the environmental control room slid open. "Former Champion Naylin," came a familiar voice. "Your disguise is impressive, but your movement patterns remain distinctively Vorak." Kororin stood in the doorway, flanked by Alliance security forces. His purple eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Kororin," Naylin acknowledged, her hand moving subtly toward her concealed blade. "Please," he said, his tone almost conversational. "No theatrics. We've been aware of your presence since you boarded the transport ship." His gaze shifted to the control panel where Naylin had been working. Attempting to disrupt the summit? How predictably crude. Through their communication link, Kai heard everything. He had to make an instant decision, abort the mission and attempt to help Naylin, or proceed with the infiltration while Kororin was occupied. Naylin made the choice for him. "Raxon Protocol," she said clearly, their prearranged code for mission continuation regardless of capture. Then, before Kororin could react, she lunged forward, blade flashing. The security forces opened fire, but Naylin was already moving, her Vorak combat training allowing her to evade the first volley. She wouldn't escape. They both knew that. But she could buy time. Kai forced himself to focus on the mission. With security diverted to Naylin's capture, the path to the inner sanctum was temporarily vulnerable. He moved swiftly, using the diplomatic confusion to slip past the remaining guards. The inner sanctum was surprisingly austere, a circular room with a large holographic projection table at its center. Currently inactive, the table held the key to the Alliance's military plans. Kai worked quickly, connecting his specialized data extraction device to the system. As the download progressed, Kai listened to the chaotic communications over the security channels. Naylin had been captured, but not before injuring several guards, and, reportedly, Kororin himself. She was being taken to a high-security detention area. The data transfer completed just as the first security alerts began to indicate an unauthorized access to the system. Kai disconnected, secured the device, and prepared to exit. The original extraction plan was compromised. He would need to improvise. Using his diplomatic credentials one last time, Kai bluffed his way through the outer security perimeter. Once clear of the immediate summit area, he activated his emergency beacon, signaling the extraction team hidden in Taralis Prime's commercial district. But he couldn't leave without attempting to reach Naylan. Their promise to each other weighed heavily, the mission before personal safety. But abandoning her to Alliance justice felt wrong on a fundamental level. The extraction team, led by a taciturn operative identified only as Raven, met Kai at the predetermined location. "The data?" Raven asked without preamble. Kai handed over the device. "Complete strategic plans, communication protocols, everything we needed." "Good. Transport leaves in 20 minutes. We need to move." "My partner was captured," Kai said. "I need to attempt recovery." Raven's expression remained impassive. "Negative. Extraction of the alien prisoner would compromise operational security. The data takes priority." "She's the reason we have the data," Kai argued. "And she knows too much about Earth's defense capabilities to leave in Alliance hands." This pragmatic argument seemed to resonate with Raven. After a moment's consideration, he activated his comm unit. "Command, requesting authorization for secondary extraction. High-value intelligence asset in Alliance custody." He listened to the response, then nodded. "Understood." Turning back to Kai, he said, "You have until the transport departs, not a minute more, and if you're captured, we will disavow all knowledge of your actions." It was enough. Kai moved through Taralis Prime's lower levels, following the security channel chatter to locate Naylan's detention cell. The Alliance was preparing to transport her to a more secure facility, which meant they would move her soon. Using the building schematics Raven had provided, Kai identified a potential interception point, a service corridor that connected the detention area to the transport docks. If he could reach it before the transfer began, he might have a chance. The corridor was dimly lit and narrow, designed for maintenance droids rather than organic beings. Kai positioned himself at a junction, listening for approaching footsteps. They came sooner than expected, the heavy tread of security forces, and the lighter, more measured steps that he recognized as Naylan's distinctive gait. Peering around the corner, he saw her, flanked by 4 guards, her hands bound with energy shackles similar to those he had worn in Nexus Arena. Kai had no weapons, having surrendered them as part of his diplomatic cover. But he didn't need them. As the group passed his position, he emerged silently, targeting the rearmost guard with a precise nerve strike that rendered the man unconscious before he could sound an alarm. The second guard turned at the sound of his colleague collapsing, only to meet a similar fate. The remaining 2 guards, alerted by the commotion, spun to face the threat, weapons raised. Naylan, despite her bound hands, was not helpless. Using the momentary distraction Kai provided, she executed a perfect spinning kick that connected with one guard's temple. The final guard managed to fire a single shot before Kai closed the distance and neutralized him. "You shouldn't be here," Naylan said as Kai deactivated her shackles. "The mission is complete," Kai finished. "The data is already on its way to Earth. Now we need to follow it." They moved quickly through the service corridors, avoiding the main passageways where security would be heaviest. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. Naylan's escape had been discovered. "They'll lock down the transport docks," Naylan said as they ran. "Not all of them," Kai replied. "Raven's team secured a commercial freighter. If we can reach Landing Bay 47 in the next..." He checked the time. 11 minutes. We have a chance." The journey to the landing bay became a gauntlet of security checkpoints and patrol droids. Each encounter forced them to adapt, to find new routes and improvise solutions. Kai's knowledge of the station layout complemented Nalin's combat skills, allowing them to progress despite the increasing security presence. With 3 minutes remaining, they reached the final corridor leading to Landing Bay 47. The entrance was guarded by a full security detail. Too many to fight through directly. "We need a diversion," Kai said, surveying the situation. Naylen pointed to an environmental control panel, similar to the one she had accessed earlier. "If we overload the atmospheric processors for this section, the emergency protocols will force them to respond." It was their only option. While Kai kept watch, Naylen worked on the panel, her fingers dancing across the controls with surprising familiarity. "I didn't know you were skilled with Alliance technology," Kai commented. "There's much about me you don't know," Naylen replied, not looking up from her work. "Just as there is much about you I am still learning." The panel flashed green, indicating success. Moments later, warning lights began to flash, and the security detail moved away from the landing bay entrance, responding to the perceived environmental threat. Kai and Naylen slipped past, entering the landing bay just as the freighter's engines began to power up. Raven stood at the boarding ramp, his expression grim. "Cutting it close," he observed as they ran aboard. The ramp began to close before they had even reached the ship's interior. The freighter lifted off smoothly, its commercial transponder codes allowing it to clear Taralis Prime's traffic control without suspicion. It was only when they reached the outer marker that pursuit vessels were launched. But by then, the freighter's hidden military-grade engines had engaged, carrying them safely into hyperspace. In the ship's small medical bay, Naylen allowed a technician to treat the injuries she had sustained during her brief captivity. Kai stood nearby, watching the careful ministrations. "You broke our agreement," Naylen said once the technician had left. "The mission before personal safety." "The mission was already accomplished," Kai countered, "and you're too valuable an asset to lose." Naylen's silver eyes studied him intently. "Is that why you came back? Because I'm an asset?" Kai met her gaze steadily. "You know it wasn't—" A moment of understanding passed between them, deeper than words could express. The bond forged in Nexus Arena had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated, but both now acknowledged. Raven interrupted their moment, entering the medical bay with a datapad. "Command wants a full debriefing once we reach Earth. The information you obtained has already been analyzed. It confirms our worst fears. Kororin wasn't just planning isolated strikes. He was orchestrating a full-scale invasion of Earth and its colonies." "Timeline?" Kai asked. 3 months. Maybe less now that we've compromised their plans." Raven's expression was grim. "We've bought time, but the Alliance Council won't abandon the strategy entirely. They'll adapt, find new approaches. Then so will we," Naylen said with quiet determination. "Kororin doesn't speak for all Alliance races, just as no single human speaks for Earth. There are others like Thorgrim who question the wisdom of this conflict." Raven looked skeptical. "Diplomatic solutions seem unlikely at this point." "Not diplomacy," Kai clarified. "Alliance. We've already begun building a network of warriors and leaders from various races who see Kororin's warmongering for what it is, a grab for personal power at the expense of galactic stability. A resistance within the Alliance itself," Raven mused. "Bold, but risky." "All worthwhile endeavors carry risk," Naylen said, unconsciously echoing a Vorak proverb. As the freighter continued its journey to Earth, Kai and Naylen spent hours in the ship's small observation deck, watching the streaks of stars pass by. They spoke of many things, their respective childhoods, the cultural differences that had once seemed insurmountable, the possibilities that lay ahead. "On Vorak," Naylen said during one such conversation, "there is a belief that warriors who face each other in honorable combat share a bond deeper than blood. Our spirits recognize each other across the battlefield." "Is that why you didn't kill me when you had the chance in our championship match?" Kai asked. Naylen smiled slightly. "I never had the chance. You were too quick." Her expression grew more serious. "But yes, perhaps some part of me recognized something in you worth preserving, just as you saw something in me beyond an enemy to be defeated." When they finally reached Earth, the reception was more formal than either had anticipated. High-ranking military officials and government representatives met their ship, escorting them directly to a secure facility where their mission was thoroughly debriefed. The data they had obtained proved invaluable, allowing Earth's defense forces to prepare countermeasures against the specific tactics Kororan had planned. But more than that, the alliance they had begun forming with dissatisfied elements within the Galactic Alliance offered hope for a more lasting solution. In the months that followed, Kai and Naylan worked tirelessly, training special forces in combined Earth-Vorak combat techniques while continuing to expand their network of alien allies. The training facility grew, incorporating elements from multiple cultures and combat traditions. Word reached them that Kororan had been censured by certain factions within the Alliance Council following the exposure of his match-fixing at Nexus Arena. His influence had diminished, though he remained dangerous. One evening, as they watched new recruits practicing a particularly challenging maneuver that combined human adaptability with Vorak precision, Nalin turned to Kai. "We've come far from that day in the arena," she observed. "We have," Kai agreed. "Though sometimes I still see the champion who looked at me with such disdain when I refused to take up weapons." Naylan laughed, a sound that had once been rare, but now came more freely. "And I sometimes see the human who confused me by refusing to kill when victory was within his grasp." She watched the recruits for a moment longer. "But mostly, I see what we're building together. Something neither of us could have created alone." As the twin suns set over the training grounds, casting long shadows across the dusty earth, Kai took Naylan's hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable months ago but now felt natural. "Whatever comes next," he said quietly, "we face it together." Naylan's fingers tightened around his. "Together," she agreed, "as warriors, as partners, as whatever we choose to become." In the distance, a communication alert sounded. Another message from Earth Command, perhaps, or news from their growing network of allies. Whatever it contained, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them not as master and slave, not as victor and vanquished, but as equals who had found strength in their differences and power in their bond. The story that had begun with defeat in an alien arena had transformed into something neither could have imagined. A partnership that transcended cultural barriers and personal history, offering hope not just for themselves, but for the future of relations between Earth and the Galactic Alliance. As they walked hand in hand toward the command center, their shadows merged into one long silhouette against the twilight sky. No longer separate entities, but a single, unified force, ready to face whatever the universe might bring.